Hello, this is the Sanyo VTC-M40 Beta HiFi video recorder, and for reasons that I'll explain at the very end of this video, this is the most important video recorder that we own as a family. I'll explain that later. But the other day when I went to use this machine, it developed a fault, so we're going to have to look at that. Sanyo didn't do as many high-performance beta video recorders for the UK market as they did for the USA. So in the UK, I believe this was the only stereo beta hi-fi video recorder that Sanyo made. In the USA, they did lots of stereo ones and even super beta, but we weren't treated to that in the UK with the PAL system. So let's work on this really quite unusual, quite rare Sanyo Beta HiFi video recorder. The Sony equivalent of this was the SL-HF100, a machine with very similar specifications, and I've worked on a few of those before. Now this one, I was attempting to demonstrate the stereo VU meters on this, comparing it to the Sony SL-HF100 when this machine stopped working. So we need to fix that. So I switch it on. The clock comes on. It's a little dim, but I don't remember it being that dim in the past, so I suspect if it's just left to run for a while, that'll probably brighten up. But the other day when I switched it on, it wouldn't come out of standby, and now it is coming out of standby. Ugh. It doesn't sound like it's done my tape much good though, so let's get it apart and get that tape out carefully. Okay, the tape's not too mangled, but I didn't want it damaged at all because it's not a particularly common tape, this one. It's the Sanyo Beta HiFi demonstration tape. What's going on here then? Let's carefully fish the tape out as best I can. A little crumpling there. That's unfortunate, very unfortunate, because not easy to replace this tape. I'm a bit sad about that, but it's only for a few seconds. Let's not use that tape again until we've got this machine sorted out. I think one thing it's worth looking at on this machine is this top board here, and a quick look around here and you'd say, who built the Beta HiFi electronics for Sanyo? Sony did. It's all Sony Beta HiFi processing there. Okay, let's power it up again and see if we can work out if there's a mechanical problem. Right, fast forward. That sounds okay. Rewind. Yep, good. Play. They're always noisy at lace up. Sounds good. Eject. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong with this machine at the moment, but that we had a problem with it not starting up feels capacitory, so I'm going to power down now and have a look at the power supply capacitors. Now, in my belief that this machine had a serious breakdown, I actually obtained from my junk hole something else. If required, we have a scrap VTC-M40. I think the heads are smashed up on this one. Here's a power supply. We have a few capacitors, smaller ones on this board, and then the main board here. which has got the STK, whatever number it is, regulator, and a few larger capacitors and a big inductor and what have you. So I will go through all the capacitors on the power supply. I suspect some of them are a little fiddly to get to. They certainly are on the VTC 5000, 5150, etc. So it may not be that easy to get at, but let's have a look. Ideally, I'd like to just take the whole power supply out. Let's see if that's possible on this model. Apart from changing idlers and belts, I've never worked on this machine. And I bought this brand new in, I think, 1984. It cost me £300. It was on special offer at Comet, if you remember Comet. So back in 1984, when I saw this one on special offer in Comet, if you remember Comet, I picked this one up for £300, and so upgraded my Sanyo VTC-M40, which I sold to a friend, and moved to this Beta HiFi. And in the event, that turned out to be possibly the wisest decision I'd ever made in my life. And I'll explain all that later. I have one screw stuck somewhere. I still can't quite free the power supply. Ah, is there a screw underneath? Yes, that screw secures the power supply. I didn't know that. That's pretty good access, actually. And like pretty much all Sanyo equipment of this time, I don't know, Sanyo sometimes get a bit bad press. People thought Sanyo were a junk manufacturer, and it's just not true. Sanyo equipment was built beautifully, and you could argue it was better built than Sony. I think so. I think the engineering was better. Sanyo equipment was easier to maintain and nearly always more reliable than Sony equivalents. Okay, so let's have a look at the capacitors. We have a couple of small value ones down here, a couple of small value ones here, and some larger ones on this board. I actually do somewhere have the full service manual for this, but I don't think we're going to need it for this, are we? Let's just check those capacitors anyway. These couple are somewhat shielded by this plastic cover, so I'm going to have to take that off in order to gain access to those. And look at that one, Rubicon. You see, Sanyo is good stuff. It really is. I love Sanyo equipment. Always thought it was just wonderfully made. Alright, what's a little bit awkward here, to gain access to this board you have to take the STK, the number is 7216 off the heatsink, which means we'll have to use a bit of heatsink compound to put that back. Okay, well that's no particularly difficult task. Now there is some sort of goop squirted on the board in various places, which can sometimes give the impression of leaky capacitor, but is not necessarily the case. Oh look, there isn't any heatsink compound on the regulator. I'm surprised at that. Alright, well we'll add a little later. Right, so let's check this 50 volt 2200 microfarad capacitor here. Have I ever mentioned I've got a remote control foot switch for this ESR meter? Now it's in circuit, so it may not test okay, but we'll see how we get on. 2300 low ESR, nothing wrong with that. And let's try this other one here, which is the same value but at 16 volts, and very similar results. I'll just check that they're in no way parallel to each other, but I can't see that they are since they have a totally different voltage rating. Okay, I don't know why they hadn't used any thermal paste in the original construction. They'd obviously done the calculations and worked out they didn't need it, but I think given the age of the unit, let's give it every chance. Obviously you don't want too much, because too much is counterproductive. We're just trying to fill the gap, in the metal, in the undulations of the materials. so that they don't have gaps between them that don't conduct. Okay, having done that, let's work our way through the smaller capacitors on this board. So here I'm seeing a 47 microfarad 100 volt. That's quite high value, high voltage I should say. I wonder what that's for. I'll try and test it in circuit initially. 46.1, that's in spec. And then there's one at the bottom here, 47 microfarad 35 volt down here. Let's see if we can test it in circuit. Again, good. Let's gain access to the couple behind this cover. So this small one here is 47 microfarad 16 volt. Let's check that. That's again in spec. 0.6 of an ohm doesn't sound unreasonable. And then one last capacitor that I am struggling to see the value of. That's 22 microfarads, but I can't see the voltage rating. And it's a Sanyo branded capacitor. And 22 microfarads it is, with a fraction of an ohm of ESR. So certainly no smoking guns there. That looks like a very good power supply. Sanyo did build it properly, didn't they? The one thing that would let the Sanyo machines down a little bit was that the real idler was a little bit low tech compared to the Sony ones. So it uses friction surfaces and drive belts, whereas the Sony ones were didn't have a drive belt and used a magnetic friction arrangement. So yeah, Sanyo, the only thing that tends to go wrong with the Sanyos is that they need new drive belts and new real idlers. And if they'd engineered that a little bit better, then you'd have had the situation where the Sanyo machines just basically never broke down. Okay, let's refit the power supply and all the connectors for it. Okay, bear with me a little. I have got something on the wrong side. One of these metal plates I've put on the wrong side of the transformer. So I'll just correct that. Okay, having correctly assembled that this time, it's my own silly fault for getting something out of sequence there. Let's just check that it powers up. Okay, now I should say that the real idler in these front-loading machines, the later front-loading machines, not the earliest one, which is the 5600, I think, that has the early real idler mechanism. The later ones, the VTC-M and N series machines, have a different incompatible real idler, works in broadly the same way, but instead of a gear for the fast forward and rewind, it has another friction surface, and I think it was done to reduce noise. So just be aware that they're even harder to get. Actually, the idlers for these later models are not easy to source. Okay, let's put the screening can back on and do some more testing. Something I wanted to just point out here is on this can at the back here, you've got various preset controls, and the leftmost one is labelled DOC, dropout compensator. And as tapes and heads wear a little, you can find that you get more dropouts than you should on something like a VTC-M40. And a small adjustment of that can make a big improvement to the picture. So just get a manky tape that's got lots of dropouts on and adjust that very slightly, and you should see that the dropouts are replaced with nothing more than a tiny fleck, and then the dropout compensator takes over as it should. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way, because the Sanyo service manual says that that is a valid way to adjust the dropout compensator control. There are just 3 drive belts on these. The rear idler one back here for the loading motor and one in here for the front loading carriage. And the front loading carriages on these, I mean, they're so reliable. I wish Sony ones could have been this good. There was a really nice feature on the timer of the Sanyo. I wonder if I've got a tape I can demonstrate it with. I haven't used this for a long time. Let's try it. If you are recording a program now... Oh. That went wrong. Sounds like the loading belt was slipping, so if I can get the machine to work, I'll do the demonstration first. Right, and then I'll change the loading belt. So it's now recording. But look what you can do. If you flick the timer to on, it now asks you stop, and you can select how many minutes or hours you want the recording to carry on for. So it's a record from now function. Very nice. Don't think the Sony had that one. Okay, let's change the loading belt, since that sounded like it was struggling. Right, belt kits are no longer as easy to obtain as they used to be. Back in the day, you just order a belt kit from Grandata. They advertised in Television magazine. So there's the belt that's come out, and you can see it's kind of set into its shape a little bit where it's been sat there for too long. And here is our replacement. Okay, that's replaced that. Let's just check that loads properly now. Actually, it sounds quieter. Not quiet, they never are, these mechanisms. They're robust, but a little agricultural. Oh good, that sounds better. Let's reassemble that again. So I was talking earlier about the DOC, dropout compensator control. Handily enough, there's a hole in the top there, so you could actually access that with the screening can still in place. Because it's Sanyo. This kind of engineering you just don't see anymore. Okay, good. Now we can demonstrate the machine, and I can finally get to show you the VU meters that I was so trying to show you the other day when it all went wrong. It's not coming out of standby again. It did for a second when I pressed that button. Is it just the on-off button that we've been having trouble with? It might be. It could just be the on-off button that we're having trouble with. Oh, maybe I just need to replace the button. Okay, let's pop a tape in. Now we have a head clog. Oh, how annoying. Okay, I'll just run a head cleaner through it and we'll get past that problem. So a few seconds playing the head cleaner tape, and with any luck, we'll have solved that problem. You can clean the heads manually, of course, but I think this is a lower risk way of doing it. We may have to clean them manually. And this is what I wanted to show you the other day on the VU meters. You got sticky segments holding the peak value on the Sanyo once you've gone into the red zone, which the signal just is. You see, the red ones stick to tell you you've gone into the red zone. And the Sony doesn't do that. Okay, cleaning the heads on this machine isn't the easiest. Take all the metalwork off again and rotate the heads with the screw at the top while holding the head cleaner stick to the edge. So it's, yeah, not the easiest. Okay, so that's how we can rotate the head tips. The head disc, which is between the upper and lower drum, both of which are static on this machine, and gently rotate it past the head cleaner stick. Okay, since the on-off switch is playing up, we'll use a remote control. I do have the original remote for this, but I'll also show that these universal remotes have got codes for them, number 291. So set VCR 291, and now good. Well, after leaving the tape running for a while, after using a head cleaner and after using head cleaner sticks, I'm still looking at a clogged or damaged video head, which is very worrying. Now, most video heads I can line up in such a way as I can get the microscope on the head tips, but it's a little bit hard on this one. I'll have to see if I can set that up, and if so, I'll show you what I can see. Let's eject the tape. So I'm a little bit worried. So there's 4 heads, of course, 2 video and 2 hi-fi audio, because Beta HiFi on the PAL system uses depth multiplexing in the same way as VHS Hi-Fi does. So we're looking at one of the heads. I don't know which is which. That certainly looks clean. I'm not seeing any faults with that, although we'll go over them all. That's, I think, clean. Let's have a, so that's a pair there. Let's go over to the other pair on the other side. Again, that looks clean. And so does that. I'm not really seeing any smoking guns. I hoped I'd see a great big clump of oxide, but no, not really. So that's a bit worrying, isn't it? Let's manually clean the heads with the aid of the microscope, which is awkward because the microscope's in its own way. But at least now I can get a really good view of what I'm doing. Sometimes you can get the heads to sort of glisten, and then you get a really good view of the centre portion of the head, but I haven't really got quite the right angles to get that to happen here. Right, I think I can say with some confidence that those head tips are clean, so if it's not working, it's either worn out or some other fault. Let's try the tape again. Okay, let's try it again. I'm quite worried, I have to say. Right, let's try the tape. Oh dear. It looks like we have no output from one of the heads. It could be an electronic fault, but it's unlikely. Well, I've not found the service manual just yet, so I've had to guess at which connection's which, but I'm pretty sure that's the head RF output. I'm not using a head switching signal because I don't even need to at the moment, because we have such a severe case of signal and no signal. If I adjust the tracking, you'll see the good signal go away or distort, yeah, as you'd expect. That's fine, but nothing from one of the heads. Picture search, yeah, exactly what you'd expect with nothing from one of the heads. And freeze frame, yeah, just what you'd expect with no output from one head. This is looking terminal. In case of a bad connection, I'm going to tap around the head amplifier and cabling here. I don't think so, but you know. I'm just thinking from the point of view of eliminating something, how hard would it be to swap the head amplifier between this and the scrap machine? Just in case, because you know, I've seen something when I was looking at the head switching signal, it was a very funny shape. that was on this connector, and it just didn't look quite right. So maybe it's not head switching properly. So just maybe it might be worth swapping out this head amplifier. How do you take it out? Okay, so I've unplugged the wires, released these two big plastic pillars that slot into these slots here, and we've got two solder connections here for earthing. Oh, hang on, they can unplug from the other ends maybe. This one goes to the head, and where does the other one go? To the... don't know what this is, another board. Okay, I don't need to desolder those. Just cut one cable tie. Okay, so we can swap that with the one from the scrap machine, just on the off chance that there's some probably capacitor failure deep inside here. But it's likely to be the heads themselves, isn't it? So here's our scrap machine. I haven't looked in this for many years. These I don't think are the original screws. Okay, I've got this on a different isolation transformer because it doesn't have a mains plug on it, so here goes. Flashing timer. Switch that off. Don't know if you can see it, but the clock is actually brighter on this one. Nice clear clock. Let's see if it mechanically runs. Little noisy, but that's working. Let's see what we get out of it then, shall we? Interesting. I'll just eject the tape from my other machine, which it did despite no amplifier, head amplifier. Alright, this is my Beta HiFi test tape. Let's just see what, if anything, we get from this one. Nothing at all in terms of picture or sound. I'm not getting anything. No Beta HiFi light. And no picture. We could pop a head cleaner through it, I guess. Don't worry about that squealing noise. Sounds like it just needs the guides cleaning on the loading ring. They do that. Right, put our tape back in, our test tape. Oh, well, there's hints of picture. And no Beta HiFi sound. Yeah, that's looking quite rough, that. It looks like there may be something wrong with it, like a massive tape path error? I don't know. Interesting. Maybe there's a lot of contamination on the drum. I actually think we've got both video heads on this one, but no Beta HiFi. Let me look at the signals with the oscilloscope. Yeah, the RF waveform actually does look slightly less awful. There is something from the heads. Let me look at the head switching signal, which is what I got confused with on the other machine. Yes, that's a nice square wave, and that's not what I was getting on the other machine. The other machine was giving me just pulses. So I definitely think it's worth trying this amplifier on the other machine. So I have to release these clips here, as well as unplug the cables and these earthing straps. Okay, so here's the slightly rustier one. Let's try that in the machine we're trying to fix. If it works, I won't necessarily leave it in there. I may have a look at what's wrong with this one, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right, I won't re-engage those plastic tabs just yet because they're horrid things to undo. Let's just test this thing. Okay then, wish me luck. Usual problem with this on-off switch working when it feels like it. No, just the same. Let's look at the RF and switching signals. Okay, I'm getting a proper head switching signal here. Maybe I had some sort of connection problem last time that was preventing that from working. But no, there's nothing wrong with that. But the RF output, signal, no signal, signal, no signal. So, no, it's not the RF amplifiers the problem. It does look like the heads. I think I will refit the original amplifier unit. But it looks like we need new heads. And I don't think the heads are any good in the other one. Though I might be able to get a picture out of the other one, I won't get hi-fi sound, I don't believe. I guess I could inspect the heads with a microscope on the scrapper. We'll do that in a moment once I've reassembled this with its own original RF amplifier. Okay, so there's the machine we were trying to fix, and we are not going to make any more progress without new heads. I may or may not spend the time replacing the on-off switch, given that the machine is no longer working. Let's leave this one for a minute and have a look at the scrap machine and see if the heads are trashed or look okay or dirty and may clean up. That would be the best possible outcome, wouldn't it? I'll start, I think, by refitting this head amplifier anyway, and then we'll set the microscope up pointing down there in the same way as we did with the other one, which gave us a reasonable view of the heads, although it's quite fiddly to set up. Quick check that the symptoms have remained unchanged. So we were expecting to see very poor picture and no hi-fi sound on this one. Yeah. But when you do picture search, there are distinct lines, which implies that it could be contamination, possibly, because they're static lines. So we'll definitely have a look at the condition of the head drums, upper and lower head drums. Okay, we can see straight away there's a lot of storage marks on the upper and lower drums, so that might be part of the reason that we're seeing such a terrible picture. So I'll clean the drums as well as looking at the head tips, but I don't think that's going to bring the hi-fi sound back, but let's clean it up anyway. So there's one of our head tips. It looks okay, could possibly use a quick clean, and the next one associated with that Again, looks okay, could use a clean. Let's spin around to the other side. Ooh, is that chipped? Looks like the far right side of that has got a chunk missing out of it. Though that might not matter. That might not matter. And then its associated head. They could use a clean. Let's clean them up and see where we are. Yeah, so that chip at the end there may not affect the performance of this head. I don't know if this is a video head or an audio head. Okay, we've cleaned up those heads as best we can. I think I need a new head cleaner stick. That's getting a bit grotty. Okay, with the heads cleaned a little bit, we're now getting a tolerable black and white picture. The tracking's a bit too fine. And where's our colour? And no Beta HiFi, which is the whole purpose of this machine, after all. So yeah, it's not much good, is it? I'll just leave it playing that tape on the off chance it cleans itself up. Okay, I've been looking at the RF output, which you can't see because my arm's in the way, from the heads, and it's really not an awful lot better than the other machine. Swinging the tracking from side to side, and it just is rubbish. But what I have found is with the tracking in a certain spot here, I actually do get the Beta HiFi light on and Beta HiFi sound. But there's no position at which I can get anything like a tolerable picture, even in black and white, and also Beta HiFi sound. So there we have it, I'm afraid. Both the machine that I'd bought in 1984 and this one that was given to me many years later have got worn out heads. And you know, I couldn't find it today, but I've got one other Sanyo VTC-M40 and it was put away also because the heads are worn out. So all other Sanyo Beta video recorders from the VTC 5000 onwards have got excellent head life, but the M40 Beta HiFi, for some reason, they must have changed something. For some reason, head life is poor on this model, which is a desperate shame, because otherwise these are outstanding machines and in some ways superior to the Sony SL-HF100 Beta HiFi machine that I've worked on recently. So I'm afraid I have to leave it there. It's a desperate shame. If anybody has a scrap machine which may possibly have good heads, let me know. Perhaps we can try to resurrect at least one of these machines. Right, I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now. Anybody wondering how I've got a test card there that says Beta HiFi and Video 99 Co UK at the bottom? I will cover that shortly, I promise you. Right, why was this Sanyo VTC-M40, this one which is so sad that it doesn't work anymore, why was this precious to me? Well, I'll tell you the story. Back in about 1983, I bought a Sanyo VTC-5150, my first video recorder, when I was a student. And then a year later, I'm pretty sure it was in 1984, this came along in the Comet store at half price at £300. So I had to snap that up because I really wanted Beta HiFi. And I sold my VTC-5150 to a friend and used this for many years. Then later in life, around about the year 2000, I was working elsewhere. I'd been working for Plessy and Nortel, and Austrian Microsystems and various places over the years. And I was doing a sideline because I had a Sanyo Beta HiFi video recorder, and I'd done a website about Beta and Beta HiFi in particular. I was getting requests to transfer Beta tapes to DVD, and I bought a JVC DVD recorder to connect to this, and I was doing transfers to that. And I also had a EVS 9000E High 8 deck with built-in time-based corrector. So occasionally I'd run 8mm tapes as well. And I'd also bought over the years a Panasonic Super VHS video recorder. So I was doing VHS and Super VHS as well. And then I bought a time-based corrector. And you can see how the business started to grow. Then I started capturing to video files rather than DVD, and added more and more formats over the years. Some of which I'd come across in previous years, like I'd worked on an N1500 many years ago as well. So that's how my business started. It was this video recorder that started our business. And more than that, we moved into this house because of the business. So the very reason we're here is because I started the audio and video transfer business. And our young son, Max, we wouldn't have had that little chap if we hadn't had this bigger house with another bedroom. So you could call him Beta Max, I suppose. Right, so that's the history of why this machine is so precious to me, and why I'd love to get some more heads for it and get this fully working again.